Hi all, welcome to Cracku's video series. I'm Sayali Ma'am. In this particular video, we'll be reviewing the second DashCAT as such. I'll be analyzing the different sections and giving you idea about what you should have done, what should have been the right strategy, what were the common mistakes that were made. So let's get started. The first section that we'll consider as quant section as such. This was a difficult section. Again, over here, I felt some questions were the statistics called them difficult questions, but they were easy questions as such. So I'd say that there were 3 easy questions, 7 difficult questions, and 12 moderate questions as such. In arithmetic, there were 3 easy, actually there were 5 easy questions. There were those who were marked hard and there were those that were marked easy, but in fact I felt 2 geometry questions that were marked as moderate difficulty were in fact easy as such. So over here, like the arithmetic had 3 fairly easy questions that you could do. There were 5 moderate and 2 hard questions. I felt arithmetic over here was fairly doable. It would have been the base of your attempt. In general, arithmetic would be the section where you score a lot of marks and make sure that you are not completely poorly doing in a particular section. In this particular section, I felt arithmetic was at par with what we see in CAT, and this would be the kind of arithmetic neither too hard nor too easy that you would actually get in CAT. In geometry, there were 4 questions. All 4 were marked as medium difficulty level, but in fact 2 were fairly easy. I'll tell you why. Because one was a direct application of like alternate segment theorem and basic circle concepts as such, and the second was such that if you deleted half of the question, you could answer the question in under a minute, not even a minute. You could answer the question in 10 seconds. It was that simple. But what happens that when you are given extra information in a particular question, you start thinking that, okay, maybe I need to do this, I need to do that. This question was about angles within a triangle. Essentially, if you have attempted DashCAT to go back to that question, delete everything other than the first line and the last line where what is like the question is asked, delete all the other information, you'd still be able to answer it. It is that basic as such. So there were 2 easy questions, very conceptual, very direct questions, which people found hard because it was made to appear hard. They were like fake hard questions, okay. There were 2 easy, 2 moderate questions as such. Algebra over here was difficult. It was time consuming. You would take time to actually answer the questions, okay. Number system, 1 moderate question. It was doable. I would not say that you should skip this one. It was a doable question on remainders. Again, if you are comfortable with remainders, you would be able to do it within a easily within like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. If not, it would take you time. You should skip those kind of questions. Then PNC and probability, there were 2 moderate questions. Neither was a question that you could solve very quickly. So essentially, which questions you could solve actually very quickly was the geometry. 2 these geometry questions you could solve in under a minute. There were 3 arithmetic questions which you could solve under a minute, but everything else you would have to like at least spend 2.5 minutes as such. The PNC probability questions were moderate. The modern maths question was actually difficult. It was essentially a combination of progressions and logarithms. It would take time to solve. So all these questions which were like multi-step questions, over here there were 2 hard questions. There were algebra questions would take a lot of time to solve. Not crazy amount of time, but it would take a decent amount of time to solve, so that those, if you actually skipped all algebra questions, your attempt would be much better than those who actually spent a lot of time trying to solve the algebra questions. So this was my take on quant analysis. So what I would generally say is that, see, in arithmetic and geometry, especially when there is geometry involving angles, etc., you should definitely try to map out all the information that is given. But whenever you are asked, okay, this angle minus this angle, or what is this angle, try to see if you can instinctively answer that question as such. Because angles questions tend to be easier. Whenever you are asked question based on angles as such, they tend to be easier and more easily solvable than when it is not given. Second thing, I would also say that when you see that, okay, there is one more trick that I would tell you about geometry questions is that when a particular type of triangle is given, for example, not applicable to any question over here, but in general, whenever a particular triangle is given and you are asked for the maximum area or minimum area or anything of that sort, try to assume either an isosceles triangle if some condition is limiting, or in most cases assume an equilateral triangle to simplify your question as such. Because when you have those kind of, when you make those kind of simplifying assumptions, you will get a particular answer. Whether it is isosceles triangle, you will get a particular answer. So in such cases, if you say that, okay, what if this is an equilateral triangle, what would be the answer? If cannot be determined is not one of the answers, if you make those kind of simplifying assumptions and there is no condition within the question which should prevent it from being an equilateral triangle, You will arrive at your answer faster if by doing that. So see that in geometry, can you actually simplify the question by making assumptions that do not contradict any condition given, but which would simplify your process of actually solving the question. So with LRDI analysis, here this was again a difficult section, but here what I would say is that there were two moderate sets and two difficult sets as such. The 2D space LR was where you had to enumerate the cases, where you had to like fill the grids and all. It was a moderate set, easy to moderate. Essentially, there were questions within that set which would be easily solved. Some of the questions within that set would take more time to solve. But if you were doing this set, you could easily solve 3 questions of this set. The 2D arrangement, here the arrangement, you have to fill the entire arrangement and then you could answer the questions. This was a easy set. This was not a difficult set at all. It was one of the traditional arrangement sets, and I expect people to be able to solve the traditional arrangement sets as such. So this was, I would say, an easy set. If I were in your place, I would have targeted this first and then over with this. The Venn diagram set, generally when I ask students to attempt questions, I say that take the chart set first. If chart set is not there, take the table set. If table set is not there, take the Venn diagram set. These are the sets which are easy sets as such. That strategy would have been terrible over here because this set was super hard. In fact, it was a huge time waster. So it was a very difficult Venn diagram set, and in general the thumb rule of Venn diagram questions or sets being easier or chart sets being easier or table sets being easier was not true over here. This took a long time to solve, and in fact I think I did not solve in my attempt. I'm not sure, but I remember that I got badly stuck in this set. The moderate to hard set was the team selection set. This was very time consuming because it would take you a lot of time to consider and count the number of cases. If you did this set, you would barely probably you do this set and then maybe a couple of questions of the first set and that would be done. So in generally these kind of cases, I never really suggest doing team selection because there's a high probability of error. One, it takes a lot of time to do. So team selection you should do if you're not able to solve any set, but remember it is going to take a lot of time. So of these, I would not recommend doing this set. I would have generally said with a blind attempt, I would have gone for this and I did, but this would have been a terrible idea. The best attempt that you could have made is the first two sets. If you had done that, you would have been having a fairly good attempt. Otherwise, you would have struggled in this section. The VARC section, in this, again, this was, the entire mock was difficult, the quant was difficult, the LRDI was difficult, and this one also was more difficult than DC1. In DC1, the RCs were fairly simple, they were not that difficult. Here, the RCs were difficult. So here, there were two difficult analytical RCs, the two scientific RCs were easy moderate, they were fairly doable. These were so this one was easy moderate, this one also I feel was easy moderate itself. It was deterministic, there wasn't a whole lot of subjectivity involved, so I felt that you should have scored well in both of these scientific RCs. The analytical RC, one of reputation, age, and one of racism and racism not in RC, racism in philosophy, both were difficult to read, difficult to understand. And with analytical RCs, you don't have to just read, you have to digest that information, you have to compare it with something that you know, and then you can understand, okay, what does the author really mean with this? So this would require you to think a lot, and they were therefore difficult to solve as such. But these two were not difficult and you should have scored marks over here. In this case, the PJs were moderate. I won't say they were hard, they were marked statistically, they were classified as hard, but accuracy is poor in all PJs. I would not say the PJs were particularly difficult. The para summaries were, I felt, two were simple, two were easy and easy to solve, and one was slightly difficult, but two could have been done easily. The para completion were also easy moderate. So you would have made like your marks from the VA section more than the RC section. In RC section, you would have slightly struggled. In the VA section, there were easy questions that you could have solved. So overall, I would say this was a difficult mock. Again, after DC1, again, this would have been a mock where you would actually question that, am I good enough to actually crack CAT? But don't worry, this is a difficult mock and this is the start of your journey. What I would say is that the important thing to remember is that go and solve every single question from the VARC section that you missed, that you solved incorrectly. From the LRDI section, solve all 4 LRDI sets, whether you had time to attempt anything during the mock or not. Now solve them, because these are important types of LRDI sets that you should get. Venn diagram is an important type, 2D space LRs are important, puzzles are important, arrangements are important. All of these are important things that you should be able to solve. In quant also, I felt you should have done slightly better in this quant than over the last quant as such. So this is my analysis for DashCAT 2. DashCAT 2 is a harder mock, so Do not beat yourself up if you did not score up to your expectations. But this is a learning experience. Make sure that you find and identify all the weaknesses that were identified through that mock and work on that so that you get better. So thank you for tuning in.